In this video, we're going to talk about 10 things I wish I knew before I started my studies at university. What's up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. If this is the first time we're meeting, my name is Oliver and I'm a master's student in economics at Aalto-University in Finland. And on this channel, we talk about education and early career development, specifically here in Finland. So if you're new here, do consider subscribing. So as mentioned, in this video, we're going to talk about 10 things I wish I knew before I started my studies at Aalto-University around 7 years ago. So had I actually known these 10 things beforehand, I would have gotten so much more out of my studies, and I would actually also have avoided one really bad burnout. So I really hope that these 10 tips are useful for you guys as well. Also, as a disclaimer, this video is done in partnership with Aalto-University, so thanks to Aalto for helping me make you guys more consistent content. But anyways, let's jump into the topic. Alright, so the first thing I really wish I knew before I started my studies at university is that your background doesn't matter. No matter if you are the #1 in your class in high school, the captain of your school's football team, no matter if your parents are rich or poor, all of that goes out of the window when you start your studies because everyone starts from the same line. So the only thing that matters during the next few years is actually you and the work that you want to put into your education. So if you ever run into people during your studies who are trying to play up their position, their background, or trying to bolster who they are, just ignore them. They don't matter. The only thing that matters is you and the work that you put into your own studies. The second thing I really wish that I had known 7 years ago when I started my studies at Aalto is that it is okay for you to choose your own path. For example, when you're choosing your major, a lot of people end up choosing a career path or a major based on other people's opinions. So for example, a lot of people at our school try to get to study finance because finance is seen as the best major there is. And the general consensus is that the people who study finance get the best careers. And that doesn't really make any sense because it is not your major that defines your future. So why I'm actually bringing this up is that I personally made this same mistake 7 years ago when I chose my major. Everyone who knows me well knows that I am not the best with numbers. No matter this, I ended up choosing accounting and business administration as my major. And this has been the biggest single mistake that I've done during my university career. I basically hated my major. I didn't like any of the courses, at least when I was attending them. I didn't feel passionate. I had no interest in the topic. But I still kept to it because I thought that that was the right way to go and I would have a good career based on that. What this ended up doing is actually I burnt out really badly during my second year of studies, and my studies have been postponed quite heavily because I wasn't able to get the courses done. So what helped me, and actually this is the third thing that I really want you guys to understand before you start your studies, is that changing your major is okay, even midway your studies. This is actually what I did. So I actually finished my bachelor's in accounting and business administration, but I actually ended up changing my major for my master's, which I'm currently finishing up. And this had a profound change in my grades, in my happiness, and in my just overall spirit and energy. I actually found a major and a topic that I was really passionate about, and that made all the difference. And currently I'm in a really good job. I'm doing videos for you guys, and this wouldn't have been possible if I had kept pursuing the chosen path that everyone else thought that I should take. So number 2, it is okay to choose your own path, and number 3, it is okay to change the path midway if you actually need it. Alright, so this is going to be the fourth thing that I really wish I knew before I started my studies, and this is going to be one of those duh moments. I really suggest that you guys prepare well for every single class. What I mean with this is that you get so much more out of the classes, out of your notes, if you have actually done the work beforehand. A lot of students that I know, me included, basically went through all of our studies, printing out the class lecture notes just before the class started, and trying to listen for a professor for 2.5 hours, trying to follow up the notes. And this basically means that you don't really understand anything. So that basically means that you have wasted 2.5 hours of your time. And it also means that it is much harder to try to understand everything and actually study for your exams. When I started preparing for the classes, actually reading all the notes, reading all the academic literature that our professors had actually linked to us, I actually got so much more out of them. So this was the moment of this video, but still, guys, a lot of people preach, but most of the people don't do as they're told to. So prepare for your classes. So continuing on the tips, this is number 5, and this is actually something that I only realized maybe 4 years into my studies, and I don't actually know that many of my schoolmates doing this, saving and documenting every single piece of information that you are given during your studies. What I mean with this is, first of all, you should learn how to make clear and organized notes. That's just common sense. But what people don't understand is that you should save and catalog every single piece of document, all academic literature that you read, all notes you make, all lecture materials, or all essays, PowerPoint presentations that you make, and catalog everything so that you can actually find them afterwards. So the simple reason for this is that, especially during your first and second year, you're going to go through a lot of basic stuff, and you will be needing that information later in your studies. And a lot of people that I know actually had the habit of throwing all of their class notes away after their exams because they didn't want to, quote unquote, have anything more to do with that specific topic, especially if they didn't like the course. And this has cost so many people so many hours because they have to basically relearn the stuff that they already learned during the class because they didn't have the materials that they prepared. So another thing that people don't really understand before it's too late is that all the course material and notes that you get, it isn't just good for studying. You can actually utilize them after you've graduated in your work. For example, for me, even though I'm currently working in marketing and I majored in accounting and entrepreneurship, I have actually had a lot of use out of my old school notes and for example, the literature that I've saved. And if I had thrown all of them away, it would have just been wasted hours from my behalf. So tip number 6 is going to be somewhat controversial. I know that a lot of people are going to disagree with me, but no matter. During your studies, I would recommend that you guys prioritize people over books. What I mean with this is that you can always study as much as you want, but you will never be able to build those relationships afterwards that you should have done during your studies. This comes into play especially when you're applying for work. Unfortunately, it is just a fact of life that connections and networks are going to be useful when you're applying for work. No matter how smart you are, no matter how many books you read during your university studies, if you simply know no one and no one knows you, it is going to be much harder for you to actually get a good start for your career. So tip number 7 is actually quite a simple one, but very important for a lot of people, and that is, even though you don't drink, you should attend all the parties that you can. Number 1, all university parties are not just about drinking. There's so much more to them. I know a lot of people who didn't attend a lot of the events, especially during, the first 3 years of your studies, and that can actually be really harmful for you guys. As I just mentioned, all the relationships that you will build during your studies are super important, not just, for getting friends, but for building a professional network. And unfortunately, people just tend to get to know each other well in parties because that's where all the people are. Alcohol always helps, but if you don't drink, you can still have a lot of fun. And finally, if you're one of those people who think that drinking is compulsory and not drinking makes you not cool, that is one of the biggest lies that you can actually hear about studying. Especially here in Finland, actually recent research has shown that especially heavy drinking within students has gone down quite heavily during the last few years, and it has been replaced, for example, with clubs that do craft beer, whiskey, or wine. So, it is not about getting drunk, rather getting to know people and having fun. All right, so tip number 8 is actually something that I recommend that you take with a grain of salt. As a disclaimer, this is just my opinion. This is based on my experience, but it is not all about the grades. This is something that divides a lot of people. When I was researching for this video, I, for example, stumbled on an article in Forbes where they listed 10 things that you should know before you start your studies, and one of the things was, putting grades before most of the other things. I highly disagree with this point. I'm not saying that good grades aren't good. Of course they are. Especially when you're applying for your first jobs, usually when people don't have that much work experience, school grades are the first filter that many companies use to actually filter out the best candidates that they want to interview. At some point, when you actually start to accumulate work experience and progress with your studies, no one really gives a damn about your grades. They are the first filter, yes, but I've seen so many people burn out because they wanted to redo exams just so that they could get a perfect 5.0 GPA. And that is absolutely nuts. No one should burn out in school because they try to get their 4s up to 5s. Rather spend that time that you study for your exams doing volunteer work, having fun, get to know people, study a new skill from the internet, learn to code, whatever you do, but just don't go and redo your exams just so that you can get a perfect 5.0 GPA. It is not worth it. People don't care. So talking about things that matter when you're looking for a job, that is actually your previous work experience. So my tip for you guys is that you should start working as soon as possible. Try to get decent summer jobs, apply for internships as early as possible in your studies. This is going to be highly, highly important for you guys. There's a lot of people that I know who have graduated as masters, but they don't really have any relevant work experience before that. This actually makes it really, really hard for them to find a really good job after they graduate. I know a lot of people who actually have not been selected to a job, rather the company has selected someone else who is still studying because they just have more experience and they are seen as more potential for the position. So do not make the mistake of thinking that you should study, do your master's straight away. Rather, try to accumulate as much work experience in between as possible. So the last thing I wish I knew before I started my studies is that volunteer work is actually a great way of accumulating good and relevant work experience. So especially in Finland, volunteering in student clubs, associations, student unions is something that people do a lot during their studies. Number one, it is a lot of fun. You get to know a lot of really cool people, but you actually get the chance of learning new things that you wouldn't have the chance of learning if you didn't volunteer. This is also really important when you're applying, for your first, second, or even third job. Go through all of your volunteer experience and try to think of lessons. Try to think of anything that you learned from those experiences and add them to your CV. Did you learn managing a team? Did you learn accounting? Did you do any videos? Did you do the visuals for your club? Did you organize really big parties for hundreds of people? All of this is highly relevant experience when you're applying for your first, second, or even third job. And I definitely recommend that you volunteer as much as you can alongside of your studies. So that's it. That's the 10 things I personally wish I had known before I started my studies. If you have any tips of your own or any questions about studying or building your early career, do share all of them in the comment section down below and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you guys for watching this long video. I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.